Welcome to our series of talks to celebrate International Women's Month. And this week on the sofa, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Tessy Ojo. Tessy has had a large career spanning from an inspiration literally in her formative years to help people who had a tough time in life, but throughout her career having this sense that my life is not full unless I feel I'm helping other people, which led her to be the chief executive of the Diana Award charity. Great pleasure to have you here sitting on the sofa.
Thank you so much.
I think it's a very appropriate way to start with. You grew up, with a lovely life. Age 13, you're at school in Nigeria wanting to do an after club for kids who come from a disadvantaged background.
Sometimes I call it the disadvantage of birth. I didn't choose. I had no role in falling into the family that I fell into.
Yeah.
And therefore, when you see a child who's exactly like me, same age, same everything, and they fell into a family where they cannot afford food,
yeah,
it's not their fault. And we have to, we cannot simply, there was something about, you just cannot let the world keep turning. Something had to give. There was some degree of responsibility. And so for me, for example, as a teenager who had access to every dance school I wanted, who did, any after school club I wanted, the simple thing of if I shared my skills with someone else, if I taught a child how to dance, would that make a difference? That would not put food on their table, but that means they're doing something that they don't have the money to buy. And so
for themselves.
Exactly. And so being able to run after school clubs where went from reading clubs to dance clubs was just something I just loved doing. That there was just something that felt good. I felt like I had done my bit.
Yeah. And
from doing bit, you just want to do more and you want to do more. And that feeling of I'm helping, I'm making a difference.
Yeah.
100%.
It's so powerful. I know that you became inspired by understanding for the first time when you went back to Nigeria that sickle cell was an illness and it was incurable, and that you decided you want to be a doctor, and then you were told you had to be a biochemist to do that, and that's a really strong passion and field. But then you became disenchanted with it. So I want to understand how that passion to be the scientist who changes everything. That's a hard thing to then say, oh no, this isn't for me. So what was that about?
So that's my passion like I said, it came from, I wanted to be that first person to discover a cure for sickle cell. And that really was, that clarity of mind meant I wanted to be a doctor. I thought that's the way to do it. I had an amazing chemistry teacher who, when she understood the reason I wanted to be a doctor, she said, actually, you have to be a scientist.
Because you're still like 15 now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She was like, you have to be a scientist. So maybe you should study biochemistry or some. And I thought, okay, cool. I'm just going to switch. I'm going to study biochemistry. So the underlying passion was still there. And I loved biochemistry. I loved studying it. And then I think it was graduating and getting my first job. And I think I lived.
So you did university.
Oh, 100%.
Doing biochemistry.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Thinking this is it. Yeah. So now you're like 21, 22.
And exactly. Yeah. And I get my first job. I'm excited to get to. And I remember driving up to, I think it was somewhere in Surrey for my first job. And I arrived there. And then getting into this place and realizing that I'm going to be in a lab all day. And I remember ringing up my brother. And saying to him, I hate it. I hate this job. Perhaps if I cannot use science to find a cure, maybe I could find a cure for other stuff using tech.
Okay.
So I thought, okay.
What did you know about tech at this stage?
Nothing.
You just thought, tech, the new frontier.
Yes.
There must be something there. This is a classic example of the brilliance of naivety.
But my thinking at the time was, tech was so new. Tech had to be at the cutting edge of something.
Yeah.
And what if tech was the way to discover new things? Tech would bring solutions to stuff. Ultimately, I think the question I asked myself, will I help people by doing this thing?
Yeah.
And if the answer was yes, I'll do it. You would think you're young, you have a young family, you're earning a great wage, you have a massive career ahead of you. What's your problem?
Yeah.
But it was something about, I'm just lost. I feel lost. I feel further away from the thing that really drove me than ever before. Anyway, so I thought, do you know what? I'm gonna have a child soon. I'm gonna take extended time off, and that I wanted to search and just have clarity about what next. And I remember leaving her when I had my son. Something shifted. I just had a girl who was under the age of 2. I have this beautiful boy. I think I was coming up to my 29th birthday. I had a lovely home. I had everything I wanted. And at that point, it dawned on me again that, Tessy, you're just repeating the same thing that your parents had. Their boys being born right now in this same hospital. Do they have a champion? Will they have someone who would do that for them? And I just thought, damn, like I needed to see the world beyond me. So I realized that I was going to be that mother that would champion my boy Jonathan, as well as, and I would champion every other boy. But I would also champion every girl like I would champion my girl Karen. And I just knew that that's what I needed to do.
So what was that next move for you?
The next move I wrote to the Department for Education, as you do. I don't know, I did.
Yeah.
I wrote to them and said, this is me, this is my CV, what can I do? And they sent me a directory of charities. I had never had any contact with any charity at the time. And they said, here's a directory of charities. You look like someone that should be on the board of a charity. Go for it. And I was like, on the board? That's that sounded so much like my day job, like talking to people in suits and doing all the... I was like, that's kind of not the thing that I want to do. Anyway, and I just let it... I thought I would find the right thing when the right thing comes along. And at the time, I was still at home, and Stephen, my husband, went off to work. And when he came back in the evenings, he would bring me all the newspapers from the day, and he would have the babies, and I would kind of go off to a cafe somewhere and just sit and have a quiet time. And he did that one evening, and as I was flipping through the newspaper, I saw an advert about a new youth charity had been created. Didn't say what name. This ad said this charity had just been set up and needed someone to help build the system. So the word system
You thought I
and
could do
youth,
that.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about... I thought, okay, I'll do it. But what I would do, they only wrote a PO box. I thought, I'm going to write to this charity. I'm going to send them my CV. I'm going to tell them I had 4 months left of my maternity leave. I'm going to tell them that I want to help them build their systems at absolutely no cost. My intention was, if I did this, it will fix this itch.
Yeah.
And then I can go back to my day job. We thought the strategy was apply for the job, get an interview, and then get in front of the right people and make my offer. And it happened. And I got to the interview and I told them, and they're like, oh yeah, we got your letter, but we can't accept it because then I began to understand about, if I did it for free for that year, if they didn't spend out all of the money, because it was a government set up charity, they won't get in the next year.
Yeah. It was an allocation of funds.
Yes. Yeah. And I thought, I didn't realize that. Anyway, they said, look, you're here now, would you interview? And I'm like, no, I don't want this job. Anyway, eventually they said, look, just interview. So I did, and went home really disappointed that this wasn't going to happen. And eventually I got a call a few days later, and they asked if I would have the job. And I said no, because it was like 30,000 pay cut. Like, no, I knew that I didn't want to earn so much, but I also didn't want to learn so little. And they said, we will hold on to it for a few days, let us know. Anyway, that night, went to bed, and I was so restless. There was just something about that feeling of, you've always wanted to do something different. This is what you've waited for all of your life. You have the opportunity to create something right from scratch. Like, what is wrong with you? And I remember thinking, damn, I can't say no. Anyway, got up, woke Stephen up, and like, I think I'm going to have to take this job. Mm-hmm. And we walked out, we did the maths, worked it all out, and we thought, that's cool, we'll make it work. Mm-hmm. And that was it. And I rang them up the next day and said, I'm so sorry, I said no 2 days ago. If you still have me, I would like to. And that was it.
When you went there then, because it was very early days, wasn't it?
We had just been, the Diana Award at the time, I didn't know it was a Diana Award at the time. It was under an umbrella organized, it was just a project. It was just 7 months in setup. So it was pretty much at the setup stage. Yeah. And at the time, it was simply about an award, about recognizing young people who do great things, really continuing the spirit of Princess Diana. Yeah. We also really focus on tackling, removing the social and economic barriers, thinking about 8-year-old Tessy who had and her friends who maybe didn't, making sure that every child has access. There is nothing as important as just ensuring that kids have everything they need to thrive. Yeah. And if we can make that happen, if we can build some form of equity so that every child has access, for example, every child has access to a mentor, every child can come into an amazing office like this and understand what the workplace looks and feel like. Because sometimes you don't understand what it means when your child walks in here and they see an office space, they know how to be in an office. And another child will walk in and feel so child has never ever been in it and comes in the first time and they panic. Yeah. And then we say, oh, they're unemployable. They're not unemployable. Yeah. They just haven't had the exposure to it. Yeah. And so it's how do we build equity? How do we make sure every child, we're not allowing the world to keep turning as it is, and every child has that opportunity.
What does International Women's Day mean to you, International Women's Month, when you think about it?
International Day, I suppose, Women's Day for me is understanding, the barriers. It's celebrating women, firstly. Yeah. I'm a woman, proud of that. But also let's look at those barriers, because let's be honest, there's still women held back in the workplace. We know that everyone's aware around menopause and all the factors around that and how actually that could take women out of the workplace very easily. But before we get there, there's still multiple factors that hold women back. Like, are we ensuring that our workplaces are flexible? Are we saying actually because you have a family, then you cannot have a job? Or are we still allowing women to make the choice between, I have to raise a family.
Or not have to make the choice, but be able to do both.
Exactly. Yeah. And what about caring responsibility? We know that across society, women have more caring responsibility, either to elderly parents or elderly family members or children. Mm-hmm. It's just really ensuring that our workplace is fit for everyone and everyone has the opportunity to thrive. And for me, International Women's Day is reminding us as a collective of that. In reminding those women as well, like yourself, like me, who are in positions of being able to make sure our workplace is fit for other women, is to throw down that ladder. Let's not forget that. Let's not be in places and forget that there are people coming behind us, that we do all we can to support that next lot of women.
It's quick fire question time. Greatest mentor over the years, Tessy?
Has to be my mother. She was the first person who showed me how to be.
What are the 3 things that need to be done more to support women in the workplace?
Flexibility.
Yeah.
I think it's also making sure that women are at the table. I feel like there's a lot of decisions that are made with women not being on the table. Yeah. So it's ensuring that women are around the table when those decisions are being made. And the third one is ensuring that women have access to mentorship by people that are relatable.
What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Make sure that you do 20% of something that you love. In everything you do, keep 20% for something that you love. You don't have to explain it to anyone, but you absolutely love it.
But something you love that's in the work.
Or might be outside of the work, whatever.
But 20% of your life that you're working,
yes,
that you love.
Yeah.
Very good bit of advice.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I mean,
thought,
everyone wants to feel they do everything they love, but we don't. We have to do stuff that's
you have to
difficult
do
and
things that you
challenging.
don't necessarily love because that's your job. So every time I look at my diary, I'm like, is there 20% of something I love in this diary?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I know you've got a new little thing that you're doing, which is Tessy's Brunches. Tell me about them. Here is your platform. Tell the audience as well.
This is the 20% of something I love.
All right. Okay, great. I can't wait to hear about it. Tell me.
As a chief exec, I was very aware of, I wanted to make sure I looked out for the next lot of leaders coming through. And so every year I promised myself I was going to mentor 5 women. I said, 5 women, early career, I'm going to do it. The plan was start at the start of the year, and at the end of the year, they finish and I get a new 5. The reality was they just never finished. And then the next year I had another 5. And then suddenly I realized I had this community of women who had became my friends, you know. But, you know, I've always been inspired by some of the young people that we work with at the Diana Award. When I see young people who often carve out time for that thing that they're passionate about, you know, I often say, oh, I'm too busy, I can't do this. I've got to run this organization, I have no time for this. I sadly actually lost my brother in the pandemic. He was the person who said, are you going to do an MBA? He was the person who would always say, so what next? And I thought, you know what? Even though I had never told him about my wanting to make Tessy's Brunches a thing, I just thought, I'm going to do it. I'm just not going to sit around and wait for the perfect time. But it's just a convening of women. And I just want to be able to bring women together, to give women the tools they need to succeed. And if I can even convene women so that they build their own community of support, they find women that have similar likes and similar ages of worry to the place they are at the time. If I can help build communities of women, then that's my job done.
It was so lovely to have you come and sit on the sofa, Tessy. So give it up, please, for Tessy Ojo.